Okay, let's talk about tritone subs and how you can start to bring in tritone substitution into your jazz language to be able to find new ideas. Now, most of the time when we think about tritone substitution, we're thinking of it really from a harmonic standpoint. Now, what is tritone substitution? So tritone substitution at its core is this idea of whenever you have a dominant seventh chord, you can always replace it with another dominant seventh chord a tritone away. Now, the reason why this works is because if we take a look at our G7 chord, the third is B, the seventh is F. That forms a tritone. Now, the tritone is the one interval in the chromatic scale which it's basically splits the chromatic scale in half. So it's the only interval that we have where when we invert it, it becomes the exact same interval. So because of that, if I go up a tritone to D flat 7, my third of my D flat 7 is F. My seventh is, theoretically speaking, C flat, which is enharmonic to B. So what's happened is that the third and the seventh of my G7th chord now become the seventh and the third of my D flat 7 chord. And so if I start to bring in all of the notes that exist in the D flat 7th chord, if I were to play that D flat 7 with the G in the bass, I would get a flat 5 and a flat 9 also in there. So that really helps to bring some other kinds of colors. So there's like your whole G7 flat 5 flat 9 chord. So it brings in a little bit of extra tension. It also does something very interesting harmonically with the fact that if I have my D minor 7 and if I go to a D flat 7, I'm going down chromatically. So you get this chromatic movement in the bass into the C major. So when you start to bring in this kind of color, you have to understand that you're starting to bring in a little extra tension, but you're also starting to bring in a way to be able to resolve to the major, because we're always moving from tension to resolution. You're able to resolve to the major in chromatic motion. So we're going to take a very basic idea, and we're also going to do it in a way that helps us to be able to move chromatically. So we're going to take this basic idea of, for my D minor. Now, when I go to the G, what would be the G7, we're going to substitute the sound of a D flat 7. Now, the way I'm going to approach that is off of what I call the relative Dorian minor. So if D flat 7 is our dominant 7th chord, the relative Dorian minor of that would be A flat minor. Which is, if I play that same sort of idea, I'm getting the 5th, the 13th, the flat 7, the root, and the 9th of my D flat 7 chord. But it's still just like this is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, and D minor. This is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5 in A flat minor. And then it resolves by chromatic motion right into the 5th of my C major chord. So that's the whole lick. So that's what it sounds like in time. So check this out. Come join me in the next lesson where I'm going to demonstrate it for you with the rhythm section.